So here's his take on Saturday's game, Jim Harbaugh in 1986.
The last 10 games that we've played mean nothing to us right now. It's down to a one-game season. Ohio State is our season. If we win this game, then it's a successful season. If not, then it's not a successful season.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jim.
And that applies this year, you're saying?
Applies this year. Yeah. That it's a failure this season if they don't win this game. And I say that having a rearview mirror to look back at the entire Big Ten now in retrospect. This is a weak year in the Big Ten. And it's laid out there on a silver platter for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Northwestern's awaiting someone in the Big Ten championship game. If Jim doesn't get this done, if he goes 0-4 against Ohio State here as a coach, this season's a failure.
Oh, huge failure. Twofold. One is because you haven't beaten them at the shoe since 2000. You lost 13 or 14 to this same Ohio State team. But second of all, your national championship hopes go out the window. If you lose this game right here, there's no way I could see them recovering to get back into the Final Four and potentially being a national champion. So this season, if you look at it, how do they say the best bettors are in Vegas, the best people who are on the tables are? You know when to bet. You know when to go all in. If you're Michigan with the storyline this year and with the success that they've put on, 10 straight wins, you go all in. And I think that's what the expectations are. That's where the fan base is. If you come home with a loss again to Ohio State, oh, yeah, it's a big-time failure.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in windows, right? Championship windows, and probably more so in professional sports, but I think it happens at the college level as well. You have those years when you know we've got the experience, we've got the guys that are all going to be leaving for the draft and off of that defense. We've got the coach. We've got a good quarterback. We've got a run game. The offensive line has not missed a start, all five of them up front. That, to me, is a championship window. Our rival is down defensively. Their coach is struggling with his health right now. Michigan State and Penn State have fallen off the map. The West Side is down. This is the window, guys, to your point, for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. And for that reason, for the reason that they probably should beat Ohio State, that they probably do have the better team, I think this is the biggest game that he's going to coach in since the Super Bowl, when he was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. He has to win this game, and here's why. If you don't win it this time, when do you win it?
Exactly.
That's the hard part for a Michigan fan, and trust me, those Michigan fans, when I talk to them, they're gripping because they know the importance of this game, and they know that they have to win it. And at times, Marcellus, you know this from being a player, when you have to win, that's almost more difficult when it's just like, all right, let's go roll it out there and see what happens.
That's the open field catch when, no one's around for 10 yards. You got time to think about it. These guys are starting to feel that pressure. They're starting to create that pressure for themselves. And all the excuses are out the window. One, you're going against a porous defense in Ohio State. They're horrible. I mean, Maryland put up 51 against them. You look at this team right now. This is the first time he could look out there and say, this is my class. I'm Jim Harbaugh, my fourth year. These are all of my recruits. So that end of the year meeting won't go the same because there are no more excuses to pull from. You have to go out there, finish the deal, and be in that college football playoffs.
Joe, I want to ask you this because I expect Michigan to win. I expect them to win by 10 points, maybe 13, 14. But I'm concerned and I'm worried when they get into the playoffs because the Big Ten is so weak. I'm wondering if we're overvaluing Michigan. Can they compete against Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, the elite teams, and the Notre Dame, the elite teams in the South?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think that the same question could be posed to Clemson because of the weakness of the ACC. I think that the ACC is actually weaker on a whole
than the Big Ten. The same, though. We've seen Clemson in the playoffs.
That's true. Success. They've proven it at the top level over the last few years. And I get your sentiment. I would pull the ripcord on that. Rather than look forward for Michigan, I would just look towards Saturday. And here's the reason. After everything that we said, which is all true, this is still the best offense that they've played all season long. And Dwayne Haskins is still a guy that last week 3 different times had a 14-point deficit and brought his team back and back and back to the point where he was running for multiple touchdowns, and he's not even a running quarterback. He's thrown for 400 yards 4 different times this year. This guy is an elite passer with a veteran group of wide receivers. This is not a shoo-in for Michigan. There's a reason why it's still under a touchdown in Vegas right now. And the reason is that even while we've seen Ohio State struggle, what we have seen them do well is something that Michigan hasn't seen yet. They have not seen an offense like they're going to see in Columbus on Saturday. So I'm not saying that it's an end-all be-all. I will say,
like your point, though.
Go ahead.
Staying on this game because Ohio State started the season in chaos, and I don't know if that chaos has ever really gone away. And so I think Ohio State's personnel may be better than their performance, and this may be the first Saturday where they actually have the focus, the energy, the motivation to actually give their best performance.
A couple of things on the personnel, in particular on defense, because, Marcellus, you brought up their defensive struggles, and you're right. I mean, they've struggled mightily on the defensive side. Do you know that they've lost 15 players in the last 3 years in the top 4 rounds of the NFL draft? That's a lot. Now, I think that Alabama has ruined our expectations about how teams just can reload and reload and reload, because that's a lot of players. You also removed Nick Bosa from that. That's 16 players that are top 4-round players over the last 3 years. I don't think Ohio State's personnel is actually what we think it should be. Everyone says, like, oh, they're talented, they're talented. Their linebackers are not very good. They're out of position a lot. They're young in the secondary, in particular at safety. That's where you see a lot of missed tackles and missed coverages. So that's what's going on with Ohio State from that standpoint. And then the last thing I would say for the Buckeyes is, and this is an unfair deal from all of us, including the playoff committee, I think that we are evaluating Ohio State on what we think they should be versus what they are. They're still a 10-1 team that has fought and scratched and gotten to this point. All right, we view Washington State very differently. Why? Because we don't have this mountain of expectations behind our evaluation of that Washington State team. We can't say, boy, they laid an egg that night at USC when they blew a fourth-quarter lead and lost that game when they shouldn't have. No, we say, man, isn't it great with Gardner Minshew and that mustache? So Ohio State right now is in some degree a victim of their past success. And that's how we evaluate them moving forward. But this team is not in that same mold, which is why I give you that NFL draft stat and just talk a little bit about their personnel.
All right, to one of the hottest coaching rumors out there, it's no secret that Clay Helton's days as USC's head coach are numbered. That means a lot of potential replacements are being discussed, including Penn State head coach James Franklin. Of course, when Franklin was asked about switching jobs, he said he was focused on Penn State's next opponent, Maryland. All right. I think this is a no-brainer decision for James Franklin. If he's offered the USC job, you got to take it. And Penn State's a great job. But Penn State, to me, for at least the next 20 years, is still going to be Joe Paterno University. And that's what you're going to think about. You come out here to USC, he can come out here and be a savior, restore the luster that Pete Carroll had the franchise, the school, the program under. Clay Helton, you want to follow a guy like Clay Helton. If I'm a head coach, you want to follow a guy that hadn't had much success. I think this is a no-brainer.
I think it's a no-brainer as well. Penn State has nothing that is comparable to USC when USC is rolling, except the uniforms. Penn State has better uniforms.
Oh, good unis, don't they?
Oh, my God, the best in the land, brother. That Kajana Carter 32.
Yes.
Woo, go there. Respect. Other than that, you go here. And I tell you something, I had a candid conversation with Lane Kiffin when he was the coach of USC. And he said, you know what I love about this program is that it's tier one in every capacity, every aspect, the support, the fanfare, the love, the recruiting, everything. And he said, but you also can walk around campus and no one cares. He's like, I don't get sweated. He's like, I am not Nick Saban. He said, when I was the coach of Tennessee, I couldn't go from campus building to campus building. He said, at USC, everyone's like, hey, coach, move on. And still you have top tier level of recruiting and opportunities. So for James Franklin, who is known as a restorer, he did it at Vanderbilt and he's done it at Penn State. Once again, bring him to USC with a tier one program like that. You have to make that move.
And tiers, I'm glad you brought up tiers because, Marcellus, you're exactly right. And you're thinking about this in the exact right vein. When you're a coach, there's really two things that supersede everything when talking about the jobs that you would take or jobs that you would love. One is just alma mater, love for a location, right? I'd love to be I went to the University of Colorado, right? My dream job would be head coach for the University of Colorado. I'm not saying that personally because they're in the search right now, so I don't want that to get on. But I'm saying if I were a coach, it would be Colorado or a top-tier university. What's a top-tier university? A preeminent brand in each conference. Okay, so you go down to the SEC, Georgia and Alabama are the two best jobs, period. Okay, you go to the ACC right now, Clemson, absolutely the best job. Probably Florida State in there as well. You go to the Big Ten, it's Ohio State and it's Michigan. Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma. What's the Pac-12? USC. Yeah. You want to be the preeminent brand in your conference, and right now, I think Penn State's a top 11, 12 job in the country. And so this is no disrespect. USC is a better job than Penn State. Penn State's in third position in their own division when it comes to like that stature in terms of the tiers. And so for those reasons, I think if that comes up, I think James has to listen, because this would be a job that I think is a dream job on anybody's list, whether they went to USC or not.
Great decision for James Franklin. Would it be a great decision for USC, or is there a better candidate?
I think it completely depends on the staff that he could hire and what their recruiting acumen is. Because for too long, I feel like USC has lived with the letterhead and not with the actions of what they're doing in recruiting. Okay, they've sent the letterhead out, and Notre Dame fell victim to this in the kind of right after the Brady Quinn era. They fell victim to this. They thought the letterhead was just going to continue to recruit the players, and they didn't have to work at it. It's still a work. It's an activity-based game. That's why the number one program in terms of activity and recruiting is Alabama. Okay, because they get out there, man, and they work. They evaluate, they work. They're out there making calls. There's no doubt about that. And so I think that James Franklin, if he comes to USC, is only a home run if he hires a staff that is willing to get down and dirty in recruiting and win every year in the Pac-12. We're going to be the number one recruiting class in the Pac-12. And